So, welcome everybody to our traditional book club today for Hazel Prior's book, The Call of the Penguins, or How the Penguins Saved Veronica. The Call of the Penguins is the second one. That's what I wanted to tell you
Yes,
about
Kathy
too.
just told me that there's another book.
There's a part
Oh,
two, which
oh,
I on purpose did have not read yet because I knew that I even get the titles confused. So of course I would end up getting the storylines confused. So just a quick little introduction with Hazel Prior. So she's English. We're all terrifically surprised considering the setting of the book. She is a harpist by profession, and she has come out with four books. So, How the Penguins Saved Veronica is her second book. That's not the original title. The title that it was published under was Away with the Penguins. And so that's the UK title. It has, and then its North American title is How the Penguins Saved Veronica. I did
Mhm.
not come across why they felt the need to change the title. Um, but North American audiences, I mean, all publishing houses know much more than I about that, but sort of like Harry Potter came out as Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the UK, and in North America it was and the Philosopher's Stone, and that was because of North Americans' weirdness to do with magic and the occult. But I didn't see or read any reasons why Away with the Penguins was a less appealing title for North American audiences than How the Penguins Saved Veronica. So she wrote How the Penguins Saved Veronica in 2020, and she came out with its sequel in 2021 called Call of the Penguins. And then she has a fourth book that just came out this past year called Life and Otter Miracles.
Otter.
Presumably, it'll feature otters much more than penguins.
Mm.
One of the things that she said inspired her for writing the book was that she'd come out with her first book called Ellie and the Heartmaker, and she had a two-book deal with Penguin Random House. And so part of it was Penguin Random House. And another thing was that she has a friend who became very, very, very involved or interested in penguins and then ended up traveling all over the world to visit. She wanted to see all the different kinds of penguins. And so she used those things as inspiration. She had never been to Antarctica, um, but she did a lot of research. And then so her character Veronica going to visit the Adelie penguins. This was mostly research based. And another thing that she really enjoyed um, one of her part of her background is in history. Like she did a degree in medieval history, but she finds, and I think a lot of us do, the World War II period, especially in England, really interesting because of again, the different like realities that people were living in. And so she wanted to have a main character who had experienced that. She thought that would be interesting. I just want to say another thing about her that I learned after having read the book was apparently she was quite sick for quite a period of time and couldn't do much of anything. So she was fairly immobile and homebound. And I feel like that probably also influenced her choice of a main character, of being older and of experiencing like the when your body doesn't agree with what or will not do the things that you want it to do necessarily. Um, and still that she has this main character who it's so easy to rely on stereotypes, especially when you're writing someone who's not you, who doesn't have like the same characteristics as you, qualities, whatever. And I think feel like she did a really good job with Veronica of having her very well rounded.
Mhm.
Like she's definitely a warts and all kind of character, although I really think that her warts are far fewer than other people sort of make them out to be. And without further ado, I'd like to know what you all thought of the book.
I'll just say something quickly because I have a big mouth and then I'll keep quiet. This book is I think a reason why I like to read because it's not too heavy, but yet it's not trite. It's got everything in it: love and loss and teenage pregnancy or whatever. It's got like everything in it, and it's from the first two people do first person, which I found interesting, Patrick and Veronica. It just was a sweet, I don't know if it's sweet, it was just a lovely, lovely book to read. It made me feel good. I didn't want to put it down, and when it was over, I was sorry it was over. And I don't, my criteria maybe isn't all that fabulous, like, but that's what I like to read, just to be, not to be too heavy or too historical fiction. I have to remember all these names and all that. This was just a very lovely, lovely story that had a lot of elements in it that I loved: sex and loss and not, but not explicit sex.
Yeah.
And basically that's how I feel. I don't know how anybody else feel. I'd love to know.
But didn't we learn a lot about penguins too? Which was an
Yeah, that's
educational
true.
aspect.
They're
Yeah.
adorable. That's true, Carol. I didn't.
Yeah.
They are absolutely fabulous, and everybody loves them when you see them on TV. They're amazing.
Have any of you been to the Biodome here in Montreal?
Years ago.
No.
Many years ago.
Oh, they have the penguins are there?
They have penguins there. It's nice to
Really?
find an
Oh.
excuse to go for a visit. Get a day pass to go to the botanical gardens and then the biodome, and
Oh,
it's nice. Again,
that's
I have kids, so
interesting.
I have that excuse to drag me out, but I mean, it's very enjoyable on its own merits as well.
Yeah.
Who else has
I'm-
something? Toby?
I enjoyed it very much. It was something different from what I normally read. And I thought that Veronica was, I thought she was a tough cookie. She had her ways and things, she liked things done a certain way, like close the door, or what she would tell her cleaning lady how to do things and stuff like that, or the lady who took care of her. And I enjoyed it very much. And then I enjoyed the penguins too, because I like them. And I never read a book that had anything to do with them. So, no, I enjoyed it very much.
I
Terry?
agree with you,
Okay,
Toby.
no,
Yeah.
Rona summarized it beautifully. That's exactly how I felt about the book. The other thing is, I read it a long time ago, but I remember some books, when you read it and you put it down for a few days, oh my gosh, when you go back to it, you have to sort of, well, I have to anyhow, go back and just reread so I know where I'm at. Whereas
Yeah.
this book wasn't that kind of, I remember, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember it being that kind of a book, although it was the kind of book I didn't want to put down. But you could put it down and then quickly get back into it.
I have clips. You have a lot of clips.
I'm just muting you, Carol, for until you can. This is Carol has joined us as well. She's doing a sale, I believe, today. I saw her yesterday. She didn't think that she would be able to make it. So just adding her in. Just to piggyback on what Terry was saying with the storyline and being able, like, it's easy to follow and then come back to. Something I was wondering about that is if, even though it's told from multiple perspectives, because we have not only Patrick's first person narrative and Veronica's, we also have Terry's penguin blog, right? That gets interjected into it.
Right.
Sometimes when stories are told from multiple perspectives, that can make it more confusing to come in and out of. But I think partly because there were so few characters in the book, like there's what, like 6 or 7? There's Veronica, her grandson Patrick, there are the researchers, there's Terry and Dietrich and Mike. There's the
housekeeper.
housekeeper Eileen.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, all the other characters are really peripheral, unless I wrote someone else down that I'm forgetting. Yeah, like the other characters are quite peripheral, and they're only really in relation to one of these characters, like one of these more main characters. And even still, the primary characters really fall down to the two, Patrick and Veronica. And I think that helped to really focus the narrative of the book, so that you could, like, when you put it down, and I was the same way as Terry and Rona and probably all of us. It was like, I liked that it was such a feel good book. And I didn't want to put it down, but at the same time it was quite convenient to be able to put down and then pick back up again and be right back in the story.
Yeah, and I found that was really easy, you know, and I really could relate to Veronica, you know, her age and the way she was struggling with it and her grumpiness. I loved her sense of humor too, especially at the beginning. You know, she didn't get along with Eileen, and she was just a real character, sort of feisty, and I'm doing what I want to do. I think that comes with age, actually. You know, you can't afford it when you're younger, and I really could relate to her. She was wonderful. And I loved Patrick. Patrick was really, you know, he tried so hard and he was so sweet and he had all these problems. And yeah, it was a good book. It was very good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Patrick's
That was
friend was
very
another
interesting.
character.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, like fairly tangential, right?
For somebody who lent him the money to go. Yeah.
Lent him the money to go, employed him, supported him, like was very much there for emotional support.
I love the backstory of how she became pregnant. Like that whole story, I found it didn't have to be that story. It could have been any story, you know, but it was that story with this Giovanni, the Italian. And then at the end on his deathbed, I swear
Yeah.
I was bawling. I
Yeah.
was bawling.
I like that she
Oh,
brought that
that
in.
was amazing, right,
Yeah.
Toby?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I couldn't believe it. Oh, it was a beautiful, beautiful story, I thought, anyway.
Carol, you're being real quiet over there. And we can see your whole face instead of just the top of your head this time. We want to hear that voice
Oh,
of yours
me?
too.
This
Yeah,
Carol?
Yeah.
Oh,
the other Carol
no.
left.
Oh, did she? Okay.
I
I
think
read it a long
she's
time
doing
ago
a
too. Oh,
she's
Yeah,
the
she has the
story
sale today.
yeah, she
Yeah.
has a
Yeah.
sale today.
Well, you know what? I read it a long time ago, so I have to listen for a little while to bring it back to memory, you know, bring
All
it up.
right.
But
I'll
I
stop
did
poking you.
like the fact that she was a very stubborn woman. And, you know, that stubbornness really, oh, gee, I'm like that.
I kept waiting. I feel like when I was reading it, I kept waiting I was like, but why? I thought the doors thing would come up again. Like, I wanted to know why it was a big deal to have all the doors closed and open. I was like, there's got to be some reason. And that never came back. Although I was wondering if she would either convert everyone at the research facility to like just everyone would automatically close doors, or she got around to leaving the doors open because of the baby penguin, because little Patrick, right? But so Patrick could get from place to place. Um, but the other thing, one of the other things, I guess I should say, that I really enjoyed about it was how her story gets so fleshed out right towards the end. So definitely in the last like fifth of the book, when it
Right.
talks about like not only her relationship with Giovanni and her teenage years, but also like how she ended up coming to her wealth and like getting married and what that marriage was like and what it looked like and why she is so isolated, why she chose isolation. And that still like I still have questions. Like I would still definitely want to ask her
Why
about
was the book so? She could have elaborated. The book could have been longer. It was short. It was a short book. She could have elaborated on her marriage. She could have elaborated on what?
That's why there's
Oh,
a part
part
two.
two.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I get
Because I
ya.
wanted more Eileen too.
That's right. I agree with you. I wanted more. It was like not enough. That's the only thing I found. Like it was like there things were left hanging. It's
But
great.
you
She's
know I
going to do
like that. This is one of my things, Terry. I like it when there are things left hanging because it lets you continue the story in your mind, I think is probably
Mm.
why. Um, but yeah, I think it's neat when I also think it's interesting that her like she wrote a follow-up book to it like right afterwards. A lot of writers might write a second or a third um book exploring different characters' perspectives, but sometimes it's later. It's because that character won't really let you go. But her book deal, like she must have gotten a second book
Oh,
deal,
so it was
obviously,
because of the
right?
book deal.
But like it was 2019 that she came out with her first one, 2020 her second, 2021 her third, 2023 her fourth. Like that's really fast in book years. It's really fast. So she must have still had a lot of the story going in her mind too. She just didn't want to write a 1,000-page book.
Right.
How old is she?
Like Barbara Streisand.
Yeah.
Like Barbara
Did
Streisand,
you
a
read that?
1,000-page
Did you
book.
read that memoir? Did you read the memoir? That's what I was going to put on my Kindle, Cindy. You saved me the
That's
good
going to
part
be
of
a
it.
Kindle book. Terry, you just asked how old she is. I couldn't find a birth date
I
for her.
couldn't read it. Okay.
She looks to be maybe a little bit older than I am, or ish my age. I would say she's in her late 40s, early 50s. But that might also be just, I think everyone is about my age, most people.
Except this group.
But you know what I mean? Like you see, like I feel like within a 10, 15-year um sort of set that I'm just like, oh, that's ish. Yeah, that's about right. I'd say 45, give or take 10 years.
Well, considering her understanding of older people, I would think she would be older, quite
Yeah,
honestly.
that's yeah.
But I think part of that is again
Oh,
her experience with infirmity that she had, and also
Oh,
probably like I know I talked about this other book possibly years ago, but definitely months ago at one of our Read What You Wants. I read this book ages ago called The Leisure Seeker, and it focuses on an older couple. So a couple in their 80s and they're traveling. Um, they're on a road trip. And it's this like the person who wrote it wasn't an older person when they wrote it. But I think that again, it goes to talk about that, like understand the humanity of the person that you're writing about instead of just the like bits of like, oh, well, all 86-year-olds are like this, or all women are like this, or all, I think that a big part of the really relatable writing of Veronica and the characterization of Veronica. Partly it is recognizing that she has a history that all of, and as do we all, right? Everyone that we've been have led up to the person that we are now, right?
Yeah.
Our experiences. And also to not uh, to flesh it out. Nobody's one dimensional. And oftentimes, and this is a problem with a lot of writing, is that in my snobbish perspective, is that too often people do just like rely on either tropes or stereotypes, or they get lazy. They get lazy. So those are the stories where, you know, the narrative is continued because someone says, "Oh, I can't believe I saw you with cheating on me with that woman," and she storms off, and he doesn't follow her, and it was actually his sister, but we never find out until the end of the book. Do you know what I mean? That's lazy writing.
mhm,
It's lazy writing when one person is just one thing, because no one is.
mhm.
No one's altogether good, no one's altogether bad. And it's nice that we see these balances. And Veronica learns that a little bit in this story too, right? Like her first impression of Patrick, that he's a lazy stoner, can't get his life together. And meanwhile, we've already met Patrick. We know that he wanted to make her this lemon cake, that he, just had this after going for a run and like like these are all healthy things, really. And then runs into his ex-girlfriend, well, doesn't run into, but sees his ex-girlfriend making out with her new boyfriend, and it just throws him into an emotional spiral, and then he's just out of it. So I like that Terry acts as like kind of a catalyst, or just like an insertion there between Patrick and Veronica, where she can, patiently listen and then be like, well, you know, do you think that other people might have more of a story to them as well? Because Veronica herself is tempted to see people as just one thing,
Mhm.
as are we all, right? We all have that. Someone cuts you off when you're driving and you're like, oh, that thoughtless something or other. And it's like, I just like to call them all cardiologists, everyone who cuts me off or drives poorly. Like, must be a cardiologist on their way to an emergency.
You're
You know
too
what I
good,
thought?
Katie, too good.
I thought the closed door scenario was like a metaphor. Like I was trying to figure out why is she always closing the door? Maybe she just closed the door on parts of her life that were so hurtful to her and so unhappy. And that's why she just closed the doors. I was trying to figure out what that meant. I don't know. What does
I
anybody
think
else
that is
think?
a great interpretation of it because she does the same with her past, right? Locking it up in a box
Right, exactly, exactly. Her diary, yeah,
and her
yeah,
locket, the locket with her parents' hair.
right. And her
Like
son's,
her parents, her sons.
yeah.
Doesn't she have Giovanni's hair in there as well?
Could be. I don't remember. Yeah, I think so. Could be. I'm not sure. I know her son definitely.
Her son
Her
definitely.
parents, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's
and
how I interpret it.
that's an
Because she's always closing the doors. There had to have been a reason for that, even if you make it up yourself, you know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's also coming from a European perspective. You know, where
Mhm.
I come from, you always have to close the doors because you have to save
Really.
the heat. And since,
Oh, that could be too. She was very
since,
Oh,
you
frugal,
know,
right?
it
She was
talks
a
about,
millionaire. She
especially
was
in
very
England,
frugal.
because I was an au pair in England and we always closed the doors because otherwise it was freezing cold, you know.
That's a good
So,
one too, because she was so frugal, Veronica. That's a good, very good, I didn't think
And
about
also with
that.
the growing up during the war.
yeah, she
Mhm.
grew up during the war and you definitely have to close the doors. And they
And lights probably too.
Of course, of course.
yeah, yeah, it's a very European thing, and you know, these open concepts that we have here now, um, I don't know if they've started them now, you know, where I come from, but all the doors were always closed, you know,
Mm.
and the lights were shut off. There was another thing.
Good
And it
point
could
too.
also be in this, like, if that might be, like, maybe it's a combination of reasons too, because it's got to be partly a generational thing as well, because Eileen always leaves the doors open,
Right.
right,
Right.
in England.
It's
But
true.
But it was interesting that she points that out. I mean, the author points this out, you know, the closing of the doors. But I think Rona's idea that it was part of her personality to
To
close
close,
everything, I
yeah.
think is probably the best.
Mhm.
which could also, I mean, it's a bit of a personality thing. Um, and I might be overstepping, but I think it's also, it can be a bit of a generational thing, cultural thing. This idea
Mhm.
too of like, because they were hard things that she's shutting off and putting away. I know that it's sort of like, oh, well, we don't think about that anymore because we don't think about that. That part's over. It's not to be dealt with as opposed to like maybe my generation and the generations that have come after me were all like, let's explore the emotional
And
repercussions
it's
of
too, it
everything.
would be too painful for her, really. So
Yeah.
that could be, that could be,
Hmm.
her past was so painful.
Yeah. But this is part of it too, right? Is that it was painful, but it was also, it had bits of wonder in it. Then like that she was shutting off out the good things as well as the bad. She was, like putting away her memories of her parents, her memories of Giovanni. Like there wasn't, of course, yes, there was pain there, but there were also a lot of good things. And
But
I think
don't
that,
think-
sorry?
I thought you were finished. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking that isn't it also generational? In other words, like my parents, they didn't talk about things the way
Mhm.
our generation. I mean, it's just very, very different. So even though as a person, she might be the kind who would have been private anyhow, I do think it's also the generation.
Hmm. I think so too. Like, I mean, we meet her as a teenager, right? She's not a, she might be occasionally secretive, but she's not like a private or like restrained character
Mhm.
in any way, right? This is what gets her in trouble, is that she's not restrained. But yeah, I definitely think that generationally, culturally, because also British, right?
Mhm.
Where the British background is known for being a little bit more reserved in
Yeah.
certain ways. And then again, because after her, it's like every time it seems that she opened herself up to someone, then there was a blowback, right? And even with her husband, who she says she never, like, she didn't love, she loved his attention to her, and but she knew about his affairs really early on, and that it was like, well, after a certain point, it's just like enough. Why? Right?
I
Why?
wish she would have elaborated on that marriage. It was a little bit too, it was too easy for me. She just like, that's where she got her money. You know, she married and he let her dabble in the real estate, and that's where she, I felt that wasn't enough. It was like quick, like, you know, just a quick problem. So how did you get all your money? And that was it. I think it should have been more elaborate. Maybe it is in part two. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I found that a bit unsatisfying. I love the book, but now that we're delving into it, I found that that's not enough of an explanation. Like, doesn't really work like that, you know?
Well,
I don't
you
know.
never
Maybe I
know.
should get a second husband and then become a multi-billionaire. I don't know. It
But
doesn't
this was
like, you
it.
know.
She had no desire to then like go back into it. She was like, okay, I've got everything I need really with like for to live. And why would I have the same choose the same thing that I had with my husband, which was clearly unsatisfying, when I already had the thing that I wanted with Giovanni. I think it's interesting that she didn't, it doesn't seem like she really tried to track down Giovanni
Yeah.
Mhm.
to I'm not like she didn't expend much effort. She did a little bit with Patrick's father, but
Mhm.
Enzo, right? That's but she didn't, but that was a dead end. But then she didn't continue with Giovanni. It was nice that I thought I liked the little bit about Giovanni at the end where he
Mhm.
thinks of her and then we hear his side in very broad strokes, but that he did kind of he wanted to go back to her and then had to or didn't have to, but then
His mother,
and
yeah.
yeah, and his mother's wishes and then that's how life goes. But this is it too, right? Is that with all of us, like we can think of so many decisions that we've made before and choices that we've made that have led our lives into the various paths that they've taken. And we talked about that a little bit with the Midnight Library when we talked about Matt Haig's The Midnight Library is it's interesting to think about these different pathways, these different roads our lives could have taken,
Choices.
led us somewhere else.
Sliding doors, like sliding doors,
Yeah.
we discussed it too.
Yes. Um, it's a small thing. It's a small thing, but it's just something that I liked. The character of Robert Saddlebow. You guys remember? He was the narrator. He was the one who did the Penguin documentary that
Oh
she
yeah.
first
Mhm.
saw. And the way she talked about him, I was like, it's David Attenborough. Do you
Oh,
Um,
you know David Attenborough? He narrates all kinds of wildlife things, and because the way that she described Robert Saddlebow was exactly how I feel about David Attenborough.
oh, that's
David Attenborough does
interesting.
anything, and I'm like, yes. I'm like, he's so smart. I thought that was interesting, an integration of like again current British culture, real British culture into the fictional story that we were
Was
reading.
this a bestseller? Was this, did this book do well?
Yes.
Was it an
Yes, yes, yes.
international bestseller? It
Yeah.
wasn't. Hmm.
Yeah, and still is doing well.
Hmm.
Mhm.
You know, I
Uh,
just want to say one thing. I know I talk too much.
you
If you wouldn't have told me to read this book Veronica, what was it? Veronica
How the
and
Penguins
How
Saved
the
Veronica.
Penguins Saved Veronica. I don't know if I spoke about it to somebody. I said, there is no way I would have ever picked up that book looking at that title. I found the title trite, like silly. How the Penguins Saved Veronica. If it wasn't in a book club, I would have gone right past it. I don't know if any of you feel the same way.
I felt just the opposite. I
The
just thought
opposite.
it's so much
Oh,
fun. Like,
wow.
yeah, to me, I was,
That's
drawn to.
funny. That's interesting. One person looks at it one way, and I found, yeah,
So
it's
this
funny.
is goes to say about the marketing again for the North American audience versus is that How the Penguins Saved Veronica. It is an interesting title and it stands out from all the other, like there are so many titles of books right now that like each one is so similar with the exception of like one word, right? Like the Paris Girl, the Girl from Paris, the, the Girl Who Walked to Paris. You know, like there are like
Confusing, yeah.
17 books like that. But the How the Penguins Saved Veronica, it's definitely like it catches your attention a little bit just because it's different from everything else. And the cover too, it's very like the way that they marketed it, it's like it's very light looking.
It's almost like a children's book, like a children's novel.
Exactly.
I mean, I would look at it and think like that's how I would look at it. Even though Terry, you look at it, so that's I would think silly. I don't want to read a silly book. I
I
don't know.
definitely
That's
I see it and I definitely thought feel good. Definitely
Yeah.
I feel like it'll be I didn't think that I would cry, when I read it. I
right.
was like, oh, this is not going to be a depressing book. And then, but it is a surprising book too, because then you read it and it's not just all surface.
Hmm.
It does actually look into family relationships and um, grieving and senses of identity and love and like let's talk about Patrick for a minute. Like, isn't it sort of surprising that Patrick is as well adjusted as he is?
Yes,
Mm.
actually it is.
Like,
I found it is.
yeah,
It's, I mean, he basically grew up
an
without
orphan.
Hmm.
anything on his own. I think it was his friend who really helped along a lot, a lot, and really made him, the sensitive kind of guy he basically is. And maybe, and probably it's probably genes too, his father was probably very nice, but we don't know, you
We don't
see.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
But I found Patrick absolutely lovable,
so charming.
even with his dope and the way he tried to make this cake and it didn't turn
And-
out.
Well, and that he's such a good cook. I liked that as one of his qualities, that was something that it was a skill that he developed. Like just become, because again, it's sort of
Very
un
surprising though, quite
unexpected.
often.
Yeah.
It was very surprising. And
And like as bad as his relationship was with the ex-girlfriend, at least he got cooking out of it. This new skill. This is how you got to look at all the bad things. You're like, something good.
no, it was lovely. I also found it interesting, the three scientists, how they eventually sort of adjusted to Veronica and actually really began to really appreciate her, especially Mike, grumpy old Mike.
Well, to me, Mike was kind of the other side of the coin with Veronica a little bit. Like he was younger and male. And we didn't hear a lot about his past, but he was also the cantankerous sort of, the on the surface, what people saw initially, I think they saw something very similar with Mike and with Veronica. Whereas again, once people got to know them, that perception changed.
And I only wanted to, at the end, I wondered, how is he going to get along with this girlfriend he supposedly has? Maybe that's why he's in the Antarctic, because,
Well,
but
this is all of them with their lives. Well, with the exception of Terry. Terry doesn't, we don't hear too much about what Terry's like at any of her relations. romance or relationships outside of the Penguins and the research
Her
team.
love of the
But she's a
Penguins
little
and
bit
all
like
of their love.
Veronica. I think she has sort of the same kind of character like Veronica. She's hiding a lot of stuff and holding back.
Mm,
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, she's not as cantankerous as Veronica.
definitely not. She's much more open,
Yeah, she is.
shy almost,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not in small
I
groups.
think most scientists that or biologists that deal with animals are so crazy about those. I think it's their whole life, you know, and
Mhm.
you can't figure out how could this be. But she's willing to live up there in the freezing cold wilderness just for the penguins. Has no life whatsoever. Like that's her life, just to be like who would want to choose that? But there are definitely, you know, this exists in the world. People like that do exist, right?
It's an interesting combination of characters that we have, right? And obviously that's part of the reason why they're there. But we have Dietrich, who is kind of like, you know, like a patriarchal figure, right? Of the research. Not only is he the lead, but he also is married and has kids and he has his family
Right.
there that like he looks forward to going back, but he spends so much of his time here. And I mean, he will be leaving. That's there in the story, but the things that we choose to do and the ways that we choose to organize our lives, like that's what works for one person or one family or one couple does not necessarily work for everyone else. Same as with Mike. This is his long-term girlfriend that he's had for ages. And what's holding them together? What is their relationship? We don't know because we only know him as a researcher. We know Dietrich will like does these drawings and sends them back to his kids and stuff, and that there's like letter writing and stuff. But and we also have this impression that Mike might have a bit of a crush on Terry, but that it's never going to go anywhere. Like it's like a work crush sort of thing. Um, and then Terry as her like her main focus
She
is
gave
the
up her life,
penguins.
but yeah, I mean,
But she plays a really interesting role in the dynamic of the three primary researchers is like she is the bridge, right? She is the one who sort of like as a lot of women do, right? Like it eases the way and like smooths things, tries to make things more um doable for everyone involved. And she does the same thing when Veronica arrives. There are interesting personalities to mix together
yeah,
for sure. And
yeah.
you'd think that there would be more. I mean, they do hint, they allude to like arguments that they have because, of course, three people living in one place for an
Right.
extended period of time and only seeing each other.
And
There's
one
gonna
bathroom.
and one bathroom.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You know, it's funny. What plagues me is I keep seeing the octopus from that other book, and I
This
keep
is
pulling. You know, and I'm trying to find the connection.
Carol is talking about the book Remarkably Bright Creatures.
Teachers, right. It was
And
wonderful.
I was definitely going to bring that up during this, is that I would say Remarkably Bright Creatures and How the Penguins Saved Veronica are definite read-alikes as librarians speak. Is that if like they're both um, feel-good books, I would say. They both have animals in like featured roles. They both also feature intergenerational relationships from with older female characters, both of them, who seem to have sort of like, in a way, given up in a like to a certain degree. Like, and by giving up, I mean like just had this like a resigned acceptance to just this is how things are. So in Remarkably Bright Creatures, the main character lost her son years before, and she just kind of moves forward through life almost like semi-sleepwalking, just to and with this idea of her grief is permanent, which it is, but without letting any degree of it go and also without letting anyone new in. And Veronica has a that same kind of element of not wanting to let anyone new in. And both of them end up having these relationships with younger people who make their way into their hearts, kind of. I definitely think that, yeah, they definitely have read-alike characters, even though the writing is different in both. I think both are very well written. But if you haven't read Remarkably Bright Creatures yet, then I would also recommend that. Yeah.
Did you think that Pip the penguin was like the long lost son that Veronica lost? She sort of like, do you think she transferred her love for her son onto this penguin? Do
A
you
little
think
bit, and
so?
like to her grandson too, right? Like this is why she first calls him Patrick, right? Pip is called Patrick
Right.
at the
Yes,
beginning.
yes.
I was, I have to say, it's a silly cartoonish hope that I had, but like when we first met Pip, I was like, maybe Sooty will adopt Pip, and then Sooty will be happy too.
Oh, you grew up as you went along. But thank you for that analysis of the two of them. There was something that, to me, drew the two books together.
Oh, for sure,
And,
for sure.
the only thing that didn't have in the Penguins is the Penguins didn't talk.
Didn't narrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Remarkably Bright Creatures, so we talked a little bit as well about how the Penguins Save Veronica, how we have multiple narrators. We have that in Remarkably Bright Creatures as well, except that one of the characters, so it's just no, it is multiple characters because there are secondary characters who narrate as well. I was going to say it's just I can't remember everyone's names. My apologies. It's been a while since I read that one. But the main female character and then the younger male character. Those are the two primary human characters. And then there's an octopus who also narrates occasional chapters, which I know it seems a little bit odd, but it really works well, I find. But there's also, I remember there was at least one other character narrates at least a few of the chapters, the owner of a local restaurant or something. But there's another book, one of my all-time favorites, called Come Thou Tortoise. And it's by a Canadian author called Jessica Grant. It does not have an older main character, but I'm relating that one to Remarkably Bright Creatures because it's told in alternate chapters. So one chapter, the main character will narrate, the other chapter, her tortoise narrates.
Oh.
And then it goes back to the.
What is the name of it, Kate?
That one is called Come Thou Tortoise by Jessica Grant.
You recommend it? Come
Yeah, I
down.
do. I do. I love it. It's
Oh.
weird. Don't I like well, you probably got that impression already when I said a tortoise narrates half the book. But
Come
it's
down now
delightful.
towards us.
Come
Okay.
Thou Tortoise
Oh, come down tortoise.
by Jessica Grant.
Reminds me of a new movie that's playing now, Leo.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he I forget what kind of an animal he is. It'll
I'm
come
not
to
as up on movies.
in a minute. I think Adam Sandler plays Leo. He and another animal. They're
Animated?
in a classroom.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
There's
figure.
a movie out now with what's her name? Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke, and it's called, I think, Leave the World Behind, and it was a book. And I read the book about a year or two ago and loved it. And then I open up the paper and I see this movie that's just opened. I said, I think it's on Netflix. I'm going to watch it on Netflix.
It is. It just
It
started.
is. And it's Leave the World Behind or something like that. I loved that book. I
Oh.
recommend it. I don't know if you ever heard of it, Katie, but it was just fabulous. They made it into a book. I'm gonna watch it on Netflix and let you know.
Okay.
Tonight.
You know,
Did you read it, Carol?
No, I haven't, and
Oh.
I don't have Netflix, so I miss out on a heck of a lot.
Oh, but Leave the World Behind Us or something like that. Oh, so
Thank you.
good.
Okay, we'll give it a try.
Yeah.
I can trust you.
No, I love your choices. Oh my God. Come on, give us some choices. Katie gave us a few good ones.
well, I
What
digressed a little bit. I know we've digressed already lots. We always digress, but a little bit more than usual towards the end now from How the Penguins Saved Veronica. But on the topic of adaptations, like movie, miniseries, books, I recently watched, I usually try and stay away from them because if I've read the book, then I feel like the movie is not going to measure up. And so I have to like what I feel like I have to watch the thing first, but then it bugs me because then I have this idea of who of the characters first. So I usually kind of stay away. But I recently watched the film version of The Glass Castle.
Um,
Do you know that the book is it's a memoir by Jeanette Walls, and
Yes.
so I had recently reread the book for another book club, and then while looking for something to watch, I was like, oh, I haven't seen that. I really like Brie Larson, and it's I. I get really stubborn, I think about like I think that if I'd have watched it first, I might have enjoyed it better than having read it because instead I just get all caught up in the inconsistencies of
yeah,
like
I don't like
but that's
books
not how
made
the
for
book
movies
was.
either. Yeah, that's how I feel too a lot. What is it? What's the other one that's on Netflix? It's this, about the blind girl and during the war.
Hmm.
Oh,
World with
all the light we cannot
Seas,
see.
Yeah.
all the light we cannot see. I can't get myself to watch that movie for something. I think it's a 4-part series.
I'm
Yeah.
having
I don't
trouble
want to
too.
watch it.
And I
Yeah.
want to because it has amazing actors in it, but there's something holding me back too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. I find if I watch it on a series or a movie, I'm so disappointed usually, and that's what I
You read the
find.
book, right? You
Yes,
read
a
the
long
book I
time ago, and
read. Yeah, the
loved it,
book
and I
I,
have
yeah,
no interest to watch it in a
me
fourth
too.
part. You feel you
And
too, eh? That's how I feel. It'll take it away. It'll lose something. I don't know.
Did you see
Whatever.
Lessons in Chemistry on Apple?
That I didn't watch either because I read. No, I haven't. I can't get myself to watch these things.
Not
Everybody's
as
telling
good
me,
as the
oh,
book. Not as good as the
not
book.
as good as the book. That's exactly it, Toby. I don't want somebody to tell me it's not as good. I'm not interested. It'll ruin the book for me. That's what I heard. Yeah,
I think we can see where
funny.
most of us lean here. The
Or
film
towards
person.
books and ridiculous movies, I think. That's what it is. They don't do a good job, I find. I don't know.
Huh. Well, it's hard, I think, it's hard to translate that that kind of depth, the depth of a book into
Right.
a film. And this is why you end up with things like the miniseries of Pride and Prejudice. Uh, is that like it's not 2 hours long. How do you make a book 2 hours long? It's
Mm,
more like
right.
12 hours long.
That's it.
Trying not
And
to lose
miss
any of
out on
the
the language. I think that's one of the main thing for me. You miss out on the language. You have a good writer and it's partially the
well,
language.
and also the internal developments of the characters, right? Like there's so much that's happening inside their brains that we get to be privy to when we're reading it. But
It's
when we
true.
watch it, it either has to be stated explicitly, which then feels like they're spoon feeding the audience, which is sucky. And then, or for lack of a better word, or it's so much that an actor has to try and convey in an expression, which is hit or miss, or
Right. It's the acting I find a lot of it that you hit the nail on the head. They have to act the way and they just don't. It's like it just doesn't translate well, I
but
find.
this is something that we've talked about before in terms of interpretations. So like we have the filmic interpretations, we've talked about the audiobook interpretations before as well. So I mean, it can be interesting. It would be an interesting study, and could be a different, maybe I'll add a third sort of theme into our book discussions. And we'll only have ones where you have to have like read the book and listened to the audiobook and seen the movie or miniseries or whatever as well. And then we'll compare all of them across the board. Because in a way, it's interesting to see, and this is what we get. I apologize if I'm harping on a little bit, but this is what we get a little bit when we do this kind of meeting, right? When we talk about the ways that we see different characters. So like Rona and Heidi's interpretations of the closed door situation with Veronica, for example, in this book. If this were made into a film, the director could choose to focus on one or the other of those interpretations. Or like when something is ambiguous in the description of a character's motivations, then a director, whether it's for voice work
Point.
or for like visual, like a film, chooses a way to approach that character or that action or whatever. I've said before, it's happened when I've listened to audiobooks that I've read before that I hear the audiobook and I'm like, that's not what that person sounds like. That's not how she would have said that, or that's not how he would have said that, or that's not how that came across. But that's not how it came across to me when I was reading it, because when you're reading it, you have all of the interpretations open
Yeah.
to you and you choose what suits you. And part of that, again, goes back to what I was saying about like, we are all of the people that we have been in the past. We are all of our past experiences that informs how we interpret things.
That's very
Whereas
interesting what you I
Whereas
find that
with
interesting.
voice work or with the film, someone is interpreting it for us, and then we are interpreting a different version of the same kind of story. So while a
We
kernel of
resent
it,
it. We resent it. I resent it. Like I don't. Why did you do that? Like I turn it off. Like it's like it shouldn't have been done. But it's a good point. I didn't think about that. That's a really, really, really good point. Really good point.
but it would make for an maybe we'll keep it out of the well, not of the discussion. I like keeping it in the discussion, but maybe we won't make it be a theme, and we'll leave it to academic papers.
So what's next for us?
Next for us is a Read What You Want book club in January. So January 9th is for the schedule. And so over the holidays, which by the way, happy Hanukkah to those celebrating. The whatever it is that you guys get into over the next several weeks, then I'm sure there will be lots to talk about. I know that I've got 2 very long car trips ahead of me in the next few weeks, so I plan on not doing all
Going.
of the driving. I'm going to Toronto to visit my in-laws, who will be accepting my parents as well there, so we're going to celebrate
Oh,
Christmas
nice.
there.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
And we usually listen to audiobooks on our way down. And then if I'm not interested in the audiobook, then I will read if I'm not driving. I don't do both at once. I promise.
I won't be here for the 9th because I'm on a road trip too, kind of.
Halifax?
I'm visiting all my 3 kids, and one of my daughters will drive, so
Oh,
it'll be nice. It's the first
Oh,
time.
very nice.
I have,
Where are
Actually,
they all?
well, I have one daughter who is a stage manager in Stratford.
Yes.
I have a son who is an artist up in Minden in Northern Ontario. And my daughter, who is the emergency room doc, she is coming from Halifax here, and she'll drive.
Nice.
wow.
Very
What a
nice.
great trip that's going to be. Good for
I
you.
yeah, and I wish you good weather, good driving weather for it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it will be okay. I mean, we are basically taking the plane to get to Ontario, to Toronto, and from there we go up north, and then we go to Ottawa to visit a daughter-in-law of mine. Her husband has died quite a while ago, so we're still in contact, and she just got remarried this year, so we're gonna do that. So
Very nice.
it will be nice. It will be good. But I won't be back on the 9th. I think we're only coming back on the 12th or something.
Well, we will miss you, but then we will see you
And I
in
won't be reading
February.
much anyway in the on the trip, I know. So I have
Fair.
to-
Katie,
Well,
this was such a good book club. It was so we really talked about that book and it was wonderful. It really was. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. Delving into it. It was a great book. Great
you're
choice.
always so kind, Rona. I appreciate that. I really enjoyed the book. I think it's, um, even though, so I usually read the book right before our meeting, like within the week before our meeting, so that it's fresh in my mind because, as I've told you before, I have a very poor memory. And I read this book actually a few weeks ago. And so then I was going through my notes that I had made like in the last few days to remember. And it was just such a pleasure to revisit all the characters again. And I do plan on reading the second book. Probably that'll be one of the books that I talk about in January.
Great.
And Carol, when I get my Kindle back,
Yeah.
it's okay, don't rush. I want to know what you're reading because I love your recommendations.
I haven't been
Yeah.
reading anything that's really good recently. I get into 100 pages and I say, do I really care?
Sherry
Oh,
LaPina,
really?
you've been enjoying those.
I do that too.
Yeah, I
Don't
just,
push myself to finish anymore.
no, I figure 100 pages is really giving it a shot, but I've returned some, and not only that, but I don't remember what I've read. And I
That's
had
the
8
problem
books
with mine,
waiting. I
too.
was so excited. The first 4 I had read already. And I keep
Anthony's not
saying
here anymore to
plagiarism.
tell you
I
that
keep
you've
yelling
already read.
plagiarism, and my husband says,
You
yeah,
know what,
haven't read it."
everybody, we should all make notes when we finish a book. We should make notes on exactly what the book was about. That's what I think, because that
Yeah.
would help us. We forget, you know.
Don't give us
Yeah.
Does anybody
homework,
do
Rona.
that? Hmm? Too much work, exactly. But
Can I just
Rhoda,
ask-
how far in advance did you read this book, The
That's
Penguins?
exactly what I was gonna ask, Carol. Yeah,
Yeah, because I didn't, it's a lot of stuff I didn't remember. I'm gonna have to
me
read it
too.
again. Yeah,
I went back. I read it 3 weeks ago when I picked it up from the library, maybe three weeks ago, and I went back yesterday and I skimmed through the whole, and it all came back to me. But I had to go through it to remember. Like I had to go through it, and it was easy to go through. It was easy to pick up. Like
you read it for the first time 3 weeks ago? Is that it?
yes, the first time when Katie said we were going to do it, and I got the
Right.
book and I read it, and then I didn't remember enough about it, and I went back and found out certain things. I forgot about who the father was, and I got into that Giovanni thing, and then I enjoyed reading it again. Like I almost read the book again,
Yeah.
and it was just as enjoyable, I found.
Okay. I find that I read the books when they first come out, and by the time we start to review them, I really can't remember.
Yeah, that's it. You have to.
Yeah.
Well, I have a tendency, like I said, I'm a big rereader of books too, but if it's been longer than a year since I first read it, I would reread it before the discussion. But that's me in my position here as semi moderator, right? Like this is otherwise, if it's been like for me, this one I read about a month and a half ago, and then I went over my notes and I read reviews and
Yeah.
little summaries just to sort of joggle my memory.
Right.
But if it's longer than that, then yeah, I definitely want to reread. And this is I think if it's a book that you enjoyed, like this is a book that I enjoyed. I would not be surprised if this is a book that I pick up again at some
No,
future point just to reread. I'll try the second one first.
I'm impressed that you reread because I find there's so many books that I don't have time to reread, you know?
But it's like a friend, right? It's like sometimes it's just like, but I want to see those people again. That's where I want to be. I want to
Oh,
experience
I
that.
don't have that. I don't have that.
Toby, you and me together.
Yeah.
They're just,
I
I
read
don't
this
know if I
several
ever
months
told
ago,
you.
even before I knew that we were going to be discussing it.
Yeah.
And I was so happy that I had actually finished the book because so often when I come to a book club, I haven't finished the book. Sometimes I've even just
What
started
do you
it.
mean before you knew we were going to be discussing it? I sent you a book club kit copy of it. You maybe forgot that we were going to be discussing it.
No. I wanted to look at it again because I knew we were going to be discussing it now. But I read it months and months and months ago before I even knew that.
Yeah.
The name just interested me.
Right. I started a book somebody recommended. This is for Rona. It's called Celestial Bodies. Have you ever read that one?
No.
Very interesting. By JokhaAlharthi. Very interesting. I just started it. I think this one I'll read to the end.
Celestial Bodies?
Yes.
Celestial Bodies.
It was the winner of the Man Booker International Prize.
Okay.
2019. I don't know where my friend got
Thank
the
you.
title, but it's really, as I said, I just started, but I think
Why is it gripping to you, Carol? Why do you think you'll actually be
Yeah.
able to complete it?
Yeah, why do you think you'll finish this one?
Oh, there are some character studies, and it's about where is it? It's in Oman, so it's places I have never been to, and so there are all kinds of their what am I going to say? Their rules and regulations, like their lives, are very different from ours, and what's expected and how you keep your mouth shut. I mean, really, Katie, you would never make it there. But
I wouldn't make it in a lot of places.
yeah, but it's just, I mean, it looks intriguing, and there are several characters and it's character development, but I really can't say much about it except that I read maybe the first 20 pages and already I'm saying, oh, okay. And
Does the
interesting.
library have it? I can get
Yeah,
it from the library.
You'll have
Yeah,
to wait
okay.
because I took it out of the library. I don't know how many they have.
Okay,
From the library.
I'm gonna reserve it.
Okay,
I'm gonna
Worth
reserve it.
trying.
Thank you.
okay.
I'm reading
This
two
was
biographies.
wonderful. Yeah.
I'm reading two biographies now, John Stamos and Henry Winkler, the Fonz.
So we've got
That's
Full
interesting.
House, and
Yeah.
Happy
Wow.
Days.
I remember him from General Hospital, John Stamos,
Oh yeah.
Really,
Boy.
so he's
long
so
time
cute.
ago when he was a teenager.
What's the review on Barbara Streisand's new book?
Yeah, did anybody get the Barbara Streisand 1,000-page book or something? No?
I think it'll take a year to read. I
That
understand.
has to be,
Well,
I feel like that would have to be an audiobook. I would,
Yes, she
Yeah, I don't
does it.
know if I'd
She
want
does it
to.
herself.
Does she?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes,
she
she
does. It's
narrates
got
it.
about 20 hours or something of audio
Something
tape.
like
It's
that,
a
yeah.
very-
It is really long. I
Does the
remember, I can't
library
remember
have
who
it,
was
Katie?
telling me how long it was supposed to be, and I was like, no,
Yes,
no way. And I double
did. I
checked.
told you, and then yes, it was long.
Yeah,
Does the
Over
library
900
have the book,
pages. Yeah.
Katie? Does the library have that memoir?
I know that we've bought it, probably more than
Okay,
one
maybe I'll look.
copy.
Okay.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Let me
I
see.
don't know if I put my name down yet.
I think I'm gonna
Should
go
have.
and see if they have. Yeah, I'm gonna
Should
put my
have.
name down.
48 hours.
Oh,
Yeah,
come on.
It is.
exactly.
48 hours and 14
You need to
minutes.
go on a road trip.
You're going
Like
to Toronto. It's perfect.
48 hours? That's
Yeah, there and back.
the last one that I listened to.
Maybe
the-
Heidi, you could read it. You're going all over Canada, right? You're
Yeah.
traveling.
But she's flying and she's going to actually be seeing people she wants to interact
Oh,
with.
she's
I
flying.
don't, I
Oh.
don't want to read a book when I finally can see my kids. I see them
Yeah,
once
yeah.
a year. No, no way. And 48 hours for Barbara Streisand, no, that's a bit too much.
It's long. I think it's too long, the book. I think the memoir
Well,
is a
we'll
little
see.
long. Mhm.
Maybe we'll all have input on that next month.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. Each
Maybe.
one of us will be assigned a certain section. A
Okay,
collaborator.
guys, I have to leave a bit early.
Well,
Too.
I think
So-
we're wrapping up too. This
Are
is
we?
the
Thank
Okay.
you.
yeah.
It was wonderful as usual. Really was so
Absolutely.
good.
Thank
Here,
you.
Yeah.
Mary, I hope you enjoyed it
Thank
as much as I thought you would.
No, I did.
I-
My problem is I have 3 other book clubs, so that's why I'm trying to.
Well,
think
drop
about
one
it.
of the others because this
Yeah.
one's great.
We're
I know, it's
fairly,
wonderful.
Book club you keep. I would never drop this book club,
I
ever,
know.
ever.
I don't know if you got this impression yet, Terry, but we're fairly relaxed.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, it's delightful.
Katie, let me know when I can have my Kindle back. Don't worry about it. Whenever you're ready. I'm just
I
so
will do
appreciative that you
indeed.
did that for me. Thank you
Rona,
so
she
much.
lost it. That's why it's taking so.
Yeah.
It's all of the
Could
books
you
that she's
imagine?
reading.
Could
Yeah.
you imagine? I would be mortified.
Oh, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's only a
I'm
thing.
gonna knock wood somewhere because, of course, Carol said it, so now something's gonna happen to it. But no,
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 don't worry
it's fine.
about
It's safe.
Get over your shoulder and say poo poo poo. Everything's fine.
Poo, poo, poo.
Thank
So
you
for
doing
those
that
of you
for
that
me,
I won't
Katie.
see, Heidi, I probably won't see you. So happy trails, happy trip, happy holidays to everybody. I wish Happy New Year, all of that, all the good things, and
Happy world.
happy
Good
world.
health, good health.
We'll see
Well,
you
we
next
hope
year. That's how we will see you next year.
we'll see you next year for sure.
See you next year,
And let's all just try and put as much good out there as we can to try and
Mhm.
keep filling up that bucket with goodness.
Yeah.
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 All right.
Kind of.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
you.
It was
As
lovely.
usual,
And
terrific.
Thank
Okay.
you so much for joining us, Terry.
Well, thank you.
Safe trip, Heidi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I will enjoy it.
I bet. I bet.